The big names you know. The other guys you've never heard of. Until now. This is Around the Nest. Jay talking around the Blue Jays minor league system.
This is Around the Nest. Jay talking our way around the Toronto Blue Jays minor league organization. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, joined by Pat Malacaro, who normally we would say is the voice of the herd, the voice of the Buffalo Bisons. But when the Blue Jays come to Buffalo, Pat, you are the voice of Salem Field. Okay, we've got a lot to talk about in terms of everything that landed the Blue Jays in Buffalo. But first, everything shuts down. Spring training shuts down, and you were in Florida when that happens, right? How did you spend the intervening months?
Yeah, it was, as everybody's experienced, it's, been, each day as it comes, you just kind of roll with the punches. I was in Florida, like you mentioned, helping out with Sportsnet 590 The Fan on their audio streams of the Blue Jays spring training, come home to Buffalo. And for the next 2 months or so, it was, how do we put Bison's content online, whether it's on social media, on the website, a lot of different things, because we were all hopeful that there would be a season at some point. Certainly none of us had experienced what we're going through now and knew what the plan or the roadmap was going to be. So we were hopeful that, the season's not going to start on time, but, maybe a month goes by, then you get into April and, maybe we'll have a season by what would be the All-Star break and play a short season. So we're getting ready for that. And then, as the month of April went on and we get into May, then you started to realize that things were going to change. So it's been a big adjustment. And, from June on, it was, just kind of taking in whatever the summer was going to bring. And, that meant by the time July rolled around, baseball was going to start back with the majors. But there really wasn't much chatter about the Blue Jays coming to Buffalo. I think, in all reality, the Blue Jays thought they would be in Toronto. It was a situation where, they went there for their summer camp. And I think they were still in the process of being hopeful that they would play at Rogers Center, whether it was in a modified bubble or whatever, but it just didn't happen. And it really wasn't until I think the last minute, the day before the announcement came, that the reality kind of set in that, Buffalo was probably going to be the place that, it went from, all right, the Blue Jays cannot play in Toronto. That means they got to find an alternate site. Maybe Pittsburgh, that didn't work out. Maybe Baltimore, that didn't work out. It was really down to Buffalo and Dunedin. And from that point on, logistically, I think it made a lot of sense to be in Buffalo. So, from now we're talking the end of July, what the next couple of weeks would be like as the season already started or was in the process of starting. So, it's been a crazy 7 or 8 months. And, it's funny to me that we're already, as we're recording this, we're a month from the season ending. It doesn't feel like the regular season ended a month ago.
All right, so Buffalo is decided upon, and there are only really a couple of weeks to get it ready for baseball, to make it major league ready in any way that they can. What was that like?
Yeah, I wasn't actually there much of the time. I was only there the couple days leading up to opening day or the home opener for the Blue Jays. But I know there was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes. Like if you've ever been in a minor league clubhouse, what the Blue Jays did was, because, let's remember, there are social distancing rules and guidelines that even baseball and sports are practicing as their sports are going on. So what the Blue Jays did was they combined the home clubhouse and the visiting clubhouse, and they combined the two together by creating a hallway that had lockers and stalls and different, making it basically a third clubhouse all combined together. So things like that were going on behind the scenes. What normally would be the umpire's room turned into like maybe a storage room. And, there were areas that just were, I would walk into the ballpark on a Monday morning and I'd walk down the hall, go up the elevator. Well, all those areas were now off limits to anybody that wasn't, a tier 1, which is the players, or tier 2, which had interactions like clubhouse staff. So, we entered the ballpark a different way because the ballpark was completely different. The concourse where fans would get their concessions or go to the gift shop, that was all different. There was a weight room, there were batting cages, pitching mounds, and even, stuff like StatCast and the video replay room. Well, that was what the gift shop normally is, facing the street out towards downtown Buffalo. That was just basically a big place for servers and different computer equipment so that they could have replay and StatCast.
This boggles my mind. You return. It has now been a couple of weeks since last you had been at the stadium. There's a lot that you can't see. Of what you can see, what did you see?
I mean, it was, I think the one thing about the Bisons in Buffalo, in our ballpark, is we pride ourselves on it was built to be a major league park. And yes, the Buffalo didn't get the expansion team back in the early 90s, but the ballpark still is one thing that we're very proud of and like to show off. And over the years, the seats may have changed and we've upgraded certain areas, but the ballpark has remained major league size and scope. So I think, to me, seeing the way that the Blue Jays set up some of the areas, like expanding the dugouts so that players could walk from the dugout up to the stands and sit and space themselves out because not everyone could be in the dugout. Or instead of the traditional bullpen, all the pitchers would sit in the stands and they had tents over top of them so that they could stay out of the sun all the time. So there's a lot of stuff like that. And just the simple things like our wall padding is green, but it turned blue for the Blue Jays. And in the corners of the outfield where the designation of the distance to the foul pole, fair pole is, it's usually a white buffalo with the green number of 325. Well, now with the blue walls, they had the red maple leaf for 325. So it was the little things like that, to me, that really caught my eye and showed everything off. And yeah, there were cardboard cutouts in the stands, and it was very unique. But just to see how the ballpark itself was different but the same, it was pretty cool.
Before we get into the summer and your role, how many of these changes are going to be sticking around for next season?
That's a great question. There's a possibility that some will, but I think a lot of the changes underneath, like mentioning the clubhouse, one big clubhouse, that won't necessarily be there. A lot of that under the ballpark type of work that was done, I believe will be put back to where it was before. Hopefully we have fans in the stands in 2021, whatever that season looks like. So that means that you won't be able to have a weight room in the concourse and things like that. And the gift shop won't be a replay room for the Blue Jays next year. But I think just some of the little things, just some of the paint, simple as a couple coats of paint were done in certain areas that maybe hadn't seen the light of day in a while. And just something like that, freshens things up. Or in the weight room, in the home clubhouse, turned into what was a big medical area for the training staff to use. Well, maybe now new weight room equipment and a reconfiguration of certain areas of the clubhouses will be different. And I think that's what you'll see mainly going forward, because not a lot, most of it is taken out, and if it's not bolted to the ground, it's like when you buy a house. If it's not bolted to the wall, well, it's going with the people that left. And for the Blue Jays, I know they had a couple of 18-wheelers pull up and took a lot of that stuff back to Toronto.
All right. So the Blue Jays are announced for Buffalo. And you know me, my very first thought was, Pat Malacaro's on scene. How do I root him? How do I lobby for him to somehow get involved? And you did get involved. Mm-hmm. How were you approached to be the PA voice?
That didn't actually happen until the season was actually going on. So for my role, I was only going to work game nights. So I was just going to be the line score guy. And I joked with our friend Ben Wagner that he had to take it easy on me, because I knew that the line score was something that was being fed to TV and radio broadcasts. And it was such an important part of how they keep track of the game that it was something that I was really looking forward to doing. And for the first homestand, that's what I did. I came to the ballpark, and I hadn't done the line score in 20 years, but pretty easy to do, and learned it pretty quickly. And then after the first homestand, I got a phone call from somebody at the ballpark that said our PA guy, Tom Burns, just couldn't do it anymore. He had another obligation, and would I be interested? And I've never done PA before. It sounds funny, just because it's not a role I've ever had. But yeah, no problem. And for the final, probably almost 20 games, I ended up being the public address announcer. And I joke, I was the PA guy to nobody, but the players did hear it. They did. It was something that kind of kept them in their routines, and it was fun to do. And we had Jackie Robinson night at the ballpark, so had to read a script for that. And the commemoration of 9/11 with the New York Mets in town was that game took place in Buffalo. So there were a couple of big moments that you usually see the commemorations on TV or whatever, and those were things that I was right in the middle of this time. So definitely a unique experience in that way too.
About the players knowing you, about that keeping them in routine, it's true. They all know your voice. Were there any stories of players acknowledging your voice once you started?
That's the difficult part, was because we're up in the press box, I didn't really notice that much, but it's funny, right? I remember back to spring training, and I did a game with Ben Wagner against the Yankees in Tampa, and the Blue Jay players that didn't go were watching the game, I believe, back in Dunedin, and because the Yankees didn't broadcast the game, we were simulcast over top of the in-house feed, and one of the players made a great play in left field, and I made the call, and the next day I show up to batting practice and I see Jonathan Davis, and I had not seen him before that, and he was all excited because I was down in Florida and he remembered my voice and all that stuff, and he was excited for me. So there have been moments throughout the last couple of years, and unfortunately, kind of that separation from the players kept me from interacting with them at all while they were here in Buffalo. But I'm sure there may be some wry smiles or shaking of the heads when they heard my call the first time.
What were some either your favorite moments or some unusual moments from PA announcing this summer?
Well, I mean, my favorite moments were probably Jackie Robinson night and the 9/11 commemoration, because how important those moments are, and wanting to make sure you honor them correctly. So those were highlights probably for me. Just watching the games in general, seeing the walk-off hit to win the first game against the Marlins. That was exciting. Just things like that. And just PA is different than calling a game. The way you and I call a broadcaster, introduce Jonathan Davis to the plate, is different than how I have to introduce Davis at the plate for a Blue Jays at bat. So, all the timing of, all right, the music is playing, now I've got to introduce him at the plate, or is there a switch? And that's something you're always kind of watching. And as you and I are broadcasters, we're always watching the game, watching the on-deck circle or the bullpen. So maybe there's a late game switch. And, a lot of the National League teams do that more than others. There were a lot of blowouts, and the Mets at one point made, I think, 4 changes going into a half inning defensively. So figuring all that out, and you've got a minute and a half to do it. Those are some of the challenges, but all the things that I find still pretty exciting as well.
The team does that, and you're like, what is this, spring training? Come on.
Exactly.
Bob Shepard, the late voice of Yankee Stadium, would say that Mickey Mantle was his favorite name to say. Did you have a favorite name to announce over the course of the summer?
I think just the cadence of it and the pronunciation and the emphasis, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. was the one for me. Just a lot of the syllables, and you get excited for the call and announcing him to the plate. And I think that was the one that really sticks out the most. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., another one, just again, because of the cadence and the way that you inflect and say his name all the way through. Those are two of the ones definitely for me that immediately come to mind.
All right, the season ends, and now it's the off season. And in a sense, this has felt like one gigantic off season. But now here we go, hitting the off season between 2020 and 21 for you. How are you spending it?
Well, I'm actually, working at home, like most people are. And I know the ballpark itself, with the exception of a ballpark engineer and a ballpark operations associate, is pretty much that's it. And nobody has really been at the ballpark, from when everyone went home. So the ballpark, I got back to Buffalo on, I think, March 14th. And by March 15th, everyone went home, brought their computer equipment, anything they needed to work. And the ballpark really has not been open since then. So with the exception of the Blue Jays obviously playing in Buffalo, but it's status quo. I mean, the folks that are working right now are still working from home, and that's the way it's going to be. And I think, right now we'll touch on it in a moment, but I think all this uncertainty with what's going to happen with minor league baseball is something that plays into kind of everything right now, because as well as I do, we'd be in 2 months removed from announcing our 2021 schedule right now. And what's the promotional schedule going to look like for the next season? What bobblehead are we going to do? What themes are we going to do for Friday night bashes and things like that? Those are all things that cannot be planned right now because, forget the fact that we don't know what the schedule is, but if you're watching football games right now, I watched the Bills-Jets game yesterday. There's still no fans at MetLife Stadium. There's still going to be no fans at Bills Stadium this weekend when they play the Patriots. So what will going to the ballpark in 2021 look like, and what does that mean for promotions and all those different and the dollars and cents of everything? So I think a long way to answer your question is a lot of the same that we've been doing for the last 7 months is the way I'll spend the next couple, and hopefully once the calendar turns to 2021, get back to the ballpark in downtown Buffalo and get ready for what will hopefully be as close to a full season as possible.
Also, Buffalo Sabres work keeps you occupied, right?
Yeah, and hopefully they start soon again too. That's right. We had the draft a couple of weeks ago, and I was excited to be a part of our draft coverage on a sister station of the station of the Bison's games are on. So yeah, hopefully that starts back up, and that'll be exciting and something to look forward to for sure.
Well, you saw this question coming down the highway, and here it is. 2021. What do you think minor league baseball looks like?
Well, I think there's still a lot to be answered in that question. And I think, what happens with leagues like the New York Penn League, I think is, top of mind. And, I think back to our chat and Around the Nest right at the end of May and beginning of June, and not knowing what it might look like for the Appalachian League and some of those other leagues. And, it just looks like the road we've been heading towards is going to happen sooner than later. So, if those leagues are gone, what happens to a lot of those teams? And then, to be quite honest, I don't know what a 2021 season in the International League looks like right now. Like you said, because of coronavirus right now and how it still is something that we're going to have to learn to, I guess, live with is a crude way to put it. But, how do we adapt to the changes in our day-to-day life, and how do we adjust to what that means in staying safe and staying healthy and minimizing the amount of people that continue to contract the virus? And what does that mean for spring training? I think that's, to me, Jesse, and I'd like your input on this too, but to me, that's the biggest question right now is what's going to happen to spring training? Are you going to be able to bring all the major leaguers and minor league players that you always do down to Florida and Arizona for spring training? And I think once that question's answered, we'll have a better idea of what 2021 season looks like. Until we really know that plan, and the World Series is still going on as we record this. So I'm sure that's going to be a plan we hear from the commissioner's office soon, but it's not something we know right now. So I wish I could, give you a concrete answer of what I think next season looks like, but I think there's just still too many variables to say, yeah, come April 4th, we are going to have baseball in the International League, in the Eastern League, in the Midwest League, and all three levels of baseball. But I just don't, and I don't want to sound too doom and gloom. I think just being the reality of the situation, I just don't know if we have enough information right now to say what it will look like come a couple of months.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And when I've been asked about this, there's so much uncertainty. It's just this blankness with a huge question mark in terms of we don't know what a month from now is going to look like. We don't know what January is going to look like. And so whether it's the state of our society or the state of different states, where one state might seem to have everything mitigated or perhaps even contained, but that might not be the case for them to try to go on the road and play a team in a different state. So travel and hotel life, there's a lot that's fraught with potential outbreak. So I feel very much the same as you, where I'm going, I would really like to fast forward through this part of the movie, but unfortunately, we're all stuck with it being our present.
Right. And, taking it back to the major leagues a little bit, the Blue Jays took 4 or 5 buses to go from Salem Field to the airport. I saw a tweet from the Braves when they left the playoff bubble. Now, they had quarantined. They're in their own quarantine, but they had quarantined for about a month. They still took 6 buses as a traveling party from Arlington, Texas to the airport. So, and these are things that if minor league baseball gets back to somewhat normal in 2021, these are what front offices are going to deal with and have to figure out is how big do the clubhouses have to be? How many buses do you have to take? How many hotel rooms do you need? So again, there's a lot of questions that still have to be answered. And I think that, that will factor into what a season looks like. And you're right. Are there some states that treat this differently? Because as we've seen in the States, and I think that's the unique quality down here in the lower 48 is every state is different. And, it's not a uniform policy across the board. And what may happen in Pennsylvania or Ohio or Massachusetts might not necessarily be the same as what we're doing here in New York. As much as you'd like to see everyone on the same page and doing the same things, that was a reality of something we had talked about. If there was a season this past summer, are there places that are handling it differently than we are? Not to say one's right or one's wrong, but how would you travel to those areas or things like that?
I would say you're right if you're mitigating it, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
If you are limiting the spread, you are right. It seems to me Major League Baseball felt a lot like minor league baseball with a different number of innovations that were announced this year. And we're all heading toward a potential college baseball where the team bus pulls up and everyone gets off already dressed in their uniform. Forget the clubhouse. We're ready to go. We'll stretch. We'll play ball. We'll get back on the bus. The Lugnuts in 2019, because of the flooding in Iowa and the Quad Cities, played at the University of Iowa, where they did not have clubhouses for us. Wild situation, but these are wild times. I'll just end with a baseball question. With Toronto Blue Jays players, come 2021, who is a player that you are looking forward to seeing, Major League, minor league? It is entirely up to you. Who's a player that you're looking forward to seeing what their 2021 looks like?
Alejandro Kirk is a player for me, and he was on the radar in spring training and with the way he was performing. But to me, he exemplifies a lot of these young players that the Blue Jays have now and made the most of this past season. Not even on the roster to start the year, but found his way onto the roster, found his way on the postseason roster. And, guys like Patrick Murphy along the way as well. And some Thomas Hatch, guys that didn't have big league experience. Some were just in the Blue Jays organization for less than a year. We're finding themselves in big time situations with the Blue Jays in the big leagues in 2020. So to me, that's the exciting part if I were a Blue Jays fan. How do you now see the development and the growth of some of these players who I don't expect to be in the big leagues in a normal situation or a close to normal season? But, are they able to go up to the big leagues now for a spell and take in chunks of time and learn more as they go? And, will we see some of these players in Buffalo in 2021 and get that seasoning now that they have some big league experience, kind of round out their abilities in the repertoire, whether it's pitching or hitting at the plate? And I think Kirk is a really good example of the potential that the Blue Jays have for quite a few years to come.
Wouldn't that be fun to be Buffalo and to say, usually we're used to promoting future Blue Jays. Here is a once and future Blue Jay, Alejandro Kirk. You've seen him here in Buffalo. You love him. That would be just a joy. He's Pat Malacaro, the master of whatever microphone that you want to put him in front of, the voice of the herd. Pat, thank you so much.
It's great catching up, Jesse. Take care.